Nets and the Knicks combine on a big one. MIKAL Bridges completing the Villanova Voltron in Madison Square Garden, going from Brooklyn to Manhattan. You've probably heard it already by now, but let's go with it. The Nets wind up with 4 unprotected first-round picks, 2025, 27, 29, and 31 from the Knicks, plus an unprotected 2028 first-round pick swap, a top 4 protected 2025 first from the Milwaukee Bucks, a 2025 second-round pick, and Bojan Bogdanovic, who gets to go back to Brooklyn. I wonder if he still gets his old locker. The Knicks get MIKAL Bridges and a 2026 second-rounder. I know you wrote about this at The Ringer. Just your first blush thoughts about that deal when you saw it go down.
I think my first reaction was, oh my God, like 5 first-round picks.
Yeah.
That was by far my snap judgment of it, where it was just like, okay, they can't all be unprotected. Okay, 4 are unprotected, owned by the Knicks.
Yeah, that's it. It's all Knicks picks, right?
Which is amazing. And then they get the protected one from the Milwaukee Bucks and a second and a swap, I think. Like, that is, plus Bogdanovic. That is like such a win for the Brooklyn Nets that it's amazing for them to just have, you have to combine it with what they did with the Houston Rockets, where they get their own picks back in 2025 and 2026, which allows them to control their own destiny, to actually tank and to just kind of shift their whole mentality as an organization from, we're going to build up a culture so that we can attract free agents, to, I know they're going to have a lot of cap space and cap flexibility going for it, but I truly think that this is a big market team that wants to behave and act like the Oklahoma City Thunder. I kind of get that sense from them, and that's good. It's like deep pocketed, but really shrewd in your decision making and your asset allocation. I think that that's great. And to exchange MIKAL Bridges, who I think is like awesome. He's an awesome player. He'll never be an all-star and he'll never make an all-NBA team, and that's whatever. That's fine. But to get 5 firsts for someone who, in January, I wrote this column, like the 5 least improved players of the season, and he was one of them. And a lot of that was like the situation that he was in Brooklyn, which was absolutely terrible. So it's like no fault of his own, but still. So yeah, I just thought that was like a masterstroke by Sean Marks. And I also want to say, which kind of juts my point a little bit, but like, Sean Marks has hired 4 head coaches. Like, I don't understand why he gets to continue to do all this, but he's doing a really good job.
We stand a job security king. There's no
exactly.
there's no way to turn your nose up at how he continues to survive. He's got alligator blood there. Mm-hmm. I think that you're absolutely right to note, like, this feels like you touched the free agency stove, the superstar stove, once, realized it was really hot and it burned your hand, and you're like, maybe I don't touch the stove anymore. Like, that's how I learn. I think their proof of concept in terms of building a competitive team, they were able to do it kind of grind it out hard way before without any of their picks. So I think the idea of, let's do that again, but this actually, like, we can benefit from being maybe the worst team in the league or one of the worst teams in the league. There's a lot of sense to that. I think the final tally winds up, because as you mentioned, the Rockets trade, they give the Rockets control over 4 future firsts in exchange for getting their own 2025 and 26 back. So I think it's like 12 first rounders or 13 first rounders over the next 4 or 5 drafts. So like, they've got ammo and they've got their own picks the next couple of years. So that's how you start this process off. And Houston being able to, like, no, we're just going to change our focus and short sell Phoenix now. I think that's really interesting. But I want to we'll move from Brooklyn, because they also re-signed Nick Claxton. 4 years, $100 million deal. I saw some speculation. I think it was one of the guys at Nets Daily. I might be wrong about that, so forgive me. That Brooklyn might look to like front load that, pay off the biggest part of it in the first couple of years, so you have more financial flexibility in the back end of it, or it makes it more tradable down the line if you need to move him for some kind of future deal. But that is $25 million for a pretty good to very good defensive center. Like, that's a going rate kind of thing. That seems fine. But yeah, like, the Nets I think they're going to be bad. We'll see them again in a couple of years. The Knicks are, I think, not going to be bad. And so I want to, I mean, you and I know that I am a New York Knicks fan. I grew up a New York Knicks fan. And I also know that you are not interested in that. And so the Bridges trade comes in conjunction with them bringing back OG Anunoby on a monster deal, 5 years, $212.5 million. I think in a vacuum, you look at it and say, OG Anunoby is going to make $42.5 million a year, and your eyes pop out of your skull and then roll down the hall like in a Warner Brothers cartoon or something like that. But it's about $30 million less than the full max he could have gotten. It'll be about like the kind of 25% max in terms of the structure of the salary cap. Cap goes up, share goes down. Not saying it's going to be a deal by the year 3 or 4, but like that's the idea. It is a deal that is happening in the context of this cap environment. All right, before we get further with that, shout out to Emmanuel Quickly, traded to the Raptors as part of the OG Anunoby deal, who got paid himself today. 5 years, $175 million in restricted free agency to go back to Toronto. Good job for you. Quick skip on that. That's pretty fun. So the Knicks, as it stands, look at their rotation is Jalen Brunson, Dante DiVincenzo, MIKAL Bridges, OG Anunoby. Julius Randle, still there is a very interesting piece. Mitchell Robinson, Josh Hart, and Deuce McBride off the bench. How do you assess where they are right now and, what they come out of this series of transactions with?
Yeah, they're an awesome basketball team. I wrote a column about, I said that my snap reaction to the deal was the picks, but the story is the Knicks because they're the good team that is trying to win. And Bridges is a seamless fit basically anywhere he goes, but particularly on this roster with 3 teammates who he won a national championship. Well, he won 2 national championships with 2 of them and then one with Josh Hart. That's it's amazing. Like that's obviously unprecedented, and their chemistry should be, hit the ground running. I think they'll be really good. I think there's, I'm a little less willing to just slot them in as the second best team in this Eastern Conference. I would like to see this offseason play out before I do that. There's a lot of questions in the East with the other pretty good teams. And I'm really curious to see what happens with Isaiah Hartenstein, who was one of their best players in the playoffs last year, one of the best defensive centers in the entire NBA last year. So if they lose him, I want to see their front court depth, because their identity, in a sense, it will kind of not dramatically shift, but maybe dramatically shift. Like the offensive rebounding, pound the glass, very physical. Like I think it'll be it'll be hard to do that, obviously, if you have Mitchell Robinson as your lone big and he gets hurt every year, and who's going to be his backup. But then it's just a more like, I don't know if Sanui is the right word, just like let's just say like they're more versatile, and they have you'll see OG Anunoby probably play the 5 a little bit more. You'll see Josh Hart.
I feel like Tibbs getting angry at the idea.
Yeah, but you'll see him play at the 5 in certain matchups and certain stints. You'll see Josh Hart at the 4, was 6'4" guy playing power forward. I think that they just have this really interesting rotation as currently constructed. And at the end of the day, something that's overlooked also. Well, first of all, I should say, when I started writing my column, I was 150 words in, and before I remembered that Julius Randle is on the team. I don't know how many.
Yeah. There's a reason Julius has been doing a lot more TV and podcast and appearances and stuff, I think. I think he wants to make sure people remember that he's out there.
Yeah, and he's extension eligible right now, and he's a 2-time All-NBA player in a Knicks jersey. It's kind of I want to see how that fits. I talk about the great chemistry with MIKAL Bridges sliding in, and I just think of it as a 4-man team, but there's other pieces here, and I wonder, I know they like Julius Randle. I've never been a huge Julius Randle person, and so I wonder, do you is he on the team in April? Is I think that's a legitimate question here, and I think that that'll be dictated in a large part by what they do with their front court and how if they have to replace Isaiah Hartenstein, what they do, because they need some size, and Randall is a pretty good rebounder for his size. So, yeah, I just think like there's some questions as there are with every team.
Sure.
But they're really good. I stopped short personally of being like I don't know, like I shouldn't say I stopped short. I think that they are a contender, and I think that if Brunson is Brunson, which there's no reason why anyone should say that he's not what last year was, there's no reason why he can't sustain that if he continues on that track and even improves a little bit. This is a easily a top 10 player. You know what I mean? Like he's a superstar.
Yeah,
so,
he was. I think 5th in MVP voting in All NBA second team this year. Like, yeah, that's the math. That's the category.
Yeah. So when you have one of those guys, you have really you've built around them in ways that accentuate strengths, cover up shortcomings. You are a contender. Like it's really hard not to be. And I think that they've done that in a lot of ways. So it's kind of a brilliant run by this front office. Honestly, you can't really take anything away from them. And I'm in like wait and see mode to see how the Philadelphia 76ers build their roster. The Milwaukee Bucks are kind of whatever, but I want to see them play basketball.
Sure.
And they have a lot to prove and a lot of pride and essentially a new head coach in a lot of ways. But like, yeah, I'll put the Knicks ahead of the Pacers. You know what I mean? Like they're a really good team.
Yeah.
And it wouldn't shock me if they made the conference finals.
Yeah. So they're in that conversation. It's a question of, sort of how seriously.